Hello, Montgomery Catholic. I'm Justin Costanza, your school president, and welcome to episode 5 of Partnering with Parents. I might even need to say welcome back to episode 5. Tonight is about social media and online platforms, and in our live broadcast, YouTube, the health of the YouTube broadcast was compromised. Words we didn't know. We don't have a YouTube doctor, but we have 2 YouTube physicians in the house that learned on their feet, have rebroadcast, and so now we are live. If you tuned in previously, the health of the stream distorted the sound. So you probably saw us say what we're about to say, but we're going to say it again so you can hear it too. Are you guys ready? I've got Father Patrick Gilbreth. I've got Lauren Hoyer at home right now. Sally, if you're tuned in, let Miss Branco know that you can hear and see us well. And Dennis and Gianna, hopefully you're right there with us as well. So, episode 5, Partnering with Parents. Y'all ready to hit this?
Let's do it again. I mean, for the first time.
Social media is a topic that we could spend the next 17 hours talking about. And we're only going to spend sub 30 minutes discussing some of the pitfalls, some of the things we need to be aware of. And one thing I can assure you right now, parents, we're not about to tell you what we think you should not be doing or shame on you for having already done this. We want to be very realistic about our advice, and we just want to bring things to your attention because so many times we find out that families and parents in particular just don't know some of the things that we are exposed to through our mission work here at the school, we could say. So tonight is part 1 of 2. So episode 5, episode 6 will be about technology and social media. Next week, we are going to broadcast a pre-recorded video, so there will be no live video, but we will release it next Thursday. It will be Holy Thursday. We have other things to spend our time and attention on, especially the young priests. But we will be back with you for part 2. And Eileen Aaron will be joining me, and Mr. Harbin himself will represent the entire nerd herd and bring all of the technical information to the screen right here. All right, so Sally, thanks for sticking with us. We're going to make this happen. Round 2, Partnering with Parents, social media. Father, start us off. Talk a little bit about how social media works in the lives of our young people.
So, yeah, the first thing I would say is social media is, we're not going to claim that it's the completely worst thing. Like, if your kids are on it, they're going to be, the worst people. No. There are good elements of social media. Obviously, YouTube, when it's working, is
when it's healthy. When it's healthy.
Yeah, is a good element of social media. We advertise through Facebook. Youth group post. I get to and communicate with Instagram. So there are good things about social media, about all the social media apps that we're going to say. But the good is kind of limited. Like there's an end to the good, and there's a whole lot more of problem areas, which are exactly what we want to bring up. There's a whole lot more that your student, a young person, can kind of dive into, which is just not where we want them to be. And so the whole point of this and the whole point of Partnering Parents is to kind of give our parents some resources to help them form virtue, to help them form healthy boundaries with a lot of these things, like relationships, like we've talked about, with social media, like we're going to talk about. So the whole point of this is just to help form those boundaries so that the good of social media, the good of these kind of apps and these things that our children use can be kind of in the forefront, and they're not sucked into this like wider kind of chasm of the bad.
Father, I love the way that you say we can inject and infuse virtue into this consumption, because that's the right word. It's consume. Mm-hmm. Parents, your children, your young people in your family are consuming social media. And what we fear is that it can also consume them. So it can be dangerous in that way. All right, so, Lauren, there's lots of different kind of apps and social media platforms. Let's not get too scary, but let's set some parameters and make sure that our families at home understand what types of platforms are we talking about.
Absolutely. I think the most popular apps that we hear talked about right now by the students are Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok is probably the most popular, YouTube, Netflix, and then more recently I've heard about an app called Omegle. So that one we're going to talk about a little bit tonight. Omegle. That one's new.
You know what I'm excited about Omegle? defining it for me. It's brand new. And if you are at home and you're a parent and you don't know what TikTok is, it is not the timer function on your on your smartphone, which is what I thought it was for about 6 months. All right,
Good.
Snapchat. Now, there are some glaring negatives that parents need to be aware of. Now, we said we're not going to talk all negative, but let's talk some negatives real fast about what do we need to be aware of. Start with Snapchat. Father, you know, we mention all the time, literally the icon for Snapchat has a ghost in it, as in disappearing.
Yeah.
Tell us why that's even important.
And that's Snapchat. It is an app that is meant for communication, but it's communication with short videos or pictures that disappear. You can set, you know, I think 0 to 10 seconds or whatever. But the point is that they disappear. They disappear. And just kind of saying that, you can obviously kind of guess some of the inherent dangers with that, especially the fact that, you know, nothing on the internet really disappears. You know, I've and I'm sure Lauren and you, I mean, we've ran across, like, even in our community, through Snapchat in particular, you know, like pictures that have gotten around because, like, a student thought that, oh yeah, no one will see this, and boom, someone screenshots it, and you know, not maliciously, but it just happens.
Remember who we're talking to. You say screenshot. So if I'm a parent and I don't understand what a screenshot is, if a picture pops up in Snapchat on your child's phone and it's going to disappear, they can save the picture by pressing 2 buttons simultaneously. They can show you how to do this. And it takes a picture of the screen. And so even though that picture of whatever it was, probably not good stuff, was supposed to disappear, it now lives on their phone.
Yeah, so obviously that's the biggest danger with Snapchat, is this kind of false facade of anonymity, which in so many cases is not true, and just kind of leads our young people to, you know, feel like they can be a little bold or, you know, whatever about posting, and not even like, you know, all like really bad stuff, but just, you know, maybe, you know, like a goofy photo of them, you know, at a party or something, or, you know, holding like beer or whatever. It's like, okay, like these things happen. And that's the problem with Snapchat, is that it kind of makes this kind of false anonymity.
And there's 2 functions of Snapchat we want you to be aware of. One being Snap Map. You heard me say it right, Snap Map. It's exactly what you think. And 2 is for my eyes only. And we've mentioned this on a previous episode. Your phone, your student's phone, yours as well if you have Snapchat, has a function inside Snapchat that is password protected, and it allows them to store photos that are very sensitive. And let's be honest, we at the school, we see a wide variety of things in the For My Eyes Only section. And one of the new trends are before and after photos for weight loss for both boys and girls. And they think, hey, I can take this photo with very little or no clothing on in a mirror, and it's private, it's for my eyes only. But again, once it's digital for anybody, that whether you want them to get their hands on it or not. Talk about Snap Map too.
Yeah, so Snap Map is a function that literally, it's a map. You click on it, it shows, you know, Montgomery or the area, and you can zoom out or whatever. But the Snap friends or whatever, the people that you follow or are friends with on Snapchat, it'll put their location like, oh, you know, they're here, they're at this house, and you can kind of zoom in and see. So again, a couple problems there. You know, there's kind of the element of, you know, if your child is trying to, you know, be sneaky and, you know, say they're going to go to one place but not, they can kind of know where their friends are going to be and where they're gathering. You know, if it's in the parking lot, like I think we talked about before.
Talked a lot about parking
or
lots.
the woods. You know, it really allows, you know, our kids to kind of gather and you know, again, not assuming the worst, but, you know, kind of gather and if they're trying to sneak away or whatever. So that's part of it too. And the other part of it is, you've talked about this before, Justin, the fact that, you know, it allows you to see where your friends are, and it also allows you to see where you're not. So there's also that legitimate fear of, you know, FOMO, the fear of missing out, which is a big deal, which causes social anxiety. You know, if we're trying to, you know, be virtuous parents and you tell your kid, you know, okay, you got to stay in for this Friday night, yet they're on Snapchat in their room and they see, you know, all their friends gathering together, it can cause some, you know, anxiety and pressure on them, which is, you know, bad.
And that's something we see on social media, period. You know, when 3 friends get together and post a picture, what does the 4th friend think? Or when 2 friends get together and every caption says, me and my bestie, well, what about the other bestie that you were just with last weekend? Not even to mention the fact that they took 74 pictures just to post the one thinking they look good. That's a whole nother partnering with parents. All right, we talked a lot about Snapchat. Talk about TikTok, that old timing app that I was discussing earlier.
Right. So TikTok on the forefront seems very innocent, and it is innocent for a lot of kids. You're scrolling through stuff. It's a lot of synchronized dances. You'll see parents get involved. Maybe you've been asked to do a dance with your kids.
And right now, Lauren and Father are about to give you their favorite TikTok dance.
I don't know any.
Oh, wait,
Sit down and talk.
Y'all took that off the cue card. I'm sorry. Here we go.
That was the first bit. That's why we cut it.
So TikTok is seemingly pretty innocent, but one of the really big things that we see with TikTok a lot is that a lot of the dances can really sexualize young people, and very young people. I mean, there's like 10-year-olds using TikTok, and the dances can be very sexual. The music that they're using can be very sexual. The clothing that they're not wearing in those, can lead to certain views, and I don't think that our students are always recognizing that it's not just their friends seeing their TikToks. There's other viewers, there's other users on the app as well, and they're very, very young to be sexualized in that way or ever.
Yeah. Moms and dads of girls in particular, here's just a note for you guys. And this works with boys too. Don't count them out. Your daughter in her age, we're talking middle school, high school particularly, and if you're younger than that, they'll be there before you can be ready for it. They are constantly in a state of wondering whether or not they're good enough and trying to figure out how to look better and trying to develop self-worth. And that's kind of sad to hear. My daughter is 5 years old and gorgeous, and I worry about what she's going to think about herself in this developing world. And it will all be because of what she listens to from other people. So how do you protect your kids from all those other voices? Well, here in an app like Snapchat, or in TikTok, you get a window into the world of so many different places. We joke around. It used to be that if you wanted to interact with or see somebody from, say, scandalous Southern California, you had to sneak in and watch TRL on MTV when your parents were out, not at the house at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You weren't old enough yet.
Still don't know.
Or you maybe had an exchange student from some crazy place in California and you got to see what it looks like. There is no secret. There are no boundaries. There is only one open world, and that is the internet. And so your kids used to be protected from the fashion trends, the slang words we would use. Here I am varnishing the table. We used to be able to protect ourselves from those things. You cannot protect them from what they will see, so you have to protect them from how they are able to view on that device. All right, so we've now made it through 2. We're 6 minutes behind. Netflix. Why is Netflix bad?
So obviously, everyone knows Netflix. Everyone's probably watched Netflix at this point. Exactly.
On the regular.
Again, like, inherently it's not bad. Fine. Movies, TV shows. I like movies. I like TV. The problem with Netflix is that there is so much content and access to just about anything. Like, you can find nudity, like pretty hardcore nudity, softcore pornography. You can find access to, movies about drugs, movies, about all these kind of weighty issues, very politicalized kind of things. One of the shows that I see is Sex Education. It's like, you can find about anything, and that's the issue with Netflix, and why, it should be monitored, from a parental perspective, because there's just so much. And literally, you can find anything, and it might seem innocent, they're watching The Office or whatever, just not even on Netflix anymore, but there's just this big corpus of material that is just so hard to monitor, and you can literally find just about anything,
And I know this is a really small nugget, but one thing that we see in Netflix a lot too, or in any of these digital movie platforms, the movies that we grew up knowing and loving were probably watched on network television, which did not allow the nudity or some of the mature stuff or even the language that is embedded in those films. Yeah. Christmas Vacation is the perfect example. I watch it 32 times a December, and I had no idea at some of the stuff that's in that movie. Yeah. Well, now you watch it on, a digital video platform, it's all in there. And so I'm trying to expose my kids to my childhood, and all of a sudden I've exposed them to some colorful language. Yeah. National Lampoon should have given it away, but I
will say, just as a little aside, this popped into my head, you can actually look at I think IMBD does it on each movie. There's like a parental
guidance,
which is very, very helpful, I think, for any movie, and again, like Netflix, because we're talking about it. So that's always an option. And there are also kind of these. I think there's a Catholic News Service does like movie reviews as well. So it's you can find ways to kind of see what the movies say.
And you can say, I mean, under the parental guidance, it'll tell you what cuss words, how much nudity, what is discussed, how sexualized something is. There's a lot. Lauren, you haven't talked much recently. Can you please tell us about Omegle?
Omegle is one that I've been hearing about more recently, which is kind of why we brought it up. It's basically this platform, an app, a website, you can use it either way, where kids can FaceTime or video chat with strangers.
Okay, pause. Say that again.
Strangers.
You can FaceTime or video chat with a complete stranger on Omegle.
Right, and you kind of, the way that it works is you kind of put in something you're interested in, like sports or a movie that you like, whatever, and anybody else who has kind of put in that same thing that they're interested in is kind of who you'll be matched up with. And there's both like a monitored version and a not monitored version, and
I think they call it moderated and unmoderated.
That's it. So the unmoderated version is obviously going to be a lot more racy, but in general, like, we're talking about FaceTiming with strangers, and I'll hear it sometimes amongst the students. They'll just be talking about this random person that they FaceTimed with last night, which, I mean, like, that has its obvious dangers to it. And really, especially in the unmoderated version, kids think it's funny, and I've heard them joke about it, but they will be exposed to explicit content. They will be exposed to it. They'll just be going through videos, and they will come across explicit content, like, 100%.
Period.
Yes.
Period. Well, we have talked about some specific negatives about social media and the different platforms, but there's lots of overarching issues that our teens in particular are going to face, that these media outlets and apps and all create. One thing that we've talked a lot about in our previous videos, and again, this is episode 5 of Partnering with Parents. If for some reason you're watching for the first time, go back out into YouTube and watch episodes 1 through 4. Moderated by yours truly, and the guests change weekly, but the information is always outstanding. We have talked about the sharing of explicit photos and how easy it is to do, and how our young people, I don't want to say they get tricked into taking them or sending them, but they stumble into that scenario, and it's difficult. And so social media can help that. I say help that. They can help that along. They can make it harder. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think especially when we get into like the explicit content and the pornographic content, I don't know that kids are even, it's not like they're going and seeking it out, like all of our kids are going and seeking it out, on their own automatically. I think it is this more slow progression. Where, it's starting on Instagram, and, they followed like some fitness accounts or something, which is like so innocent. But then they go to their search in Instagram, and all of these different accounts come up, and something that is slightly fitness related, but also slightly exposing, they see it and then they start to search for more.
So you're exactly right. So that's kind of how we stumble into, and we talk a lot about explicit content. But Father, talk about how it can be this black hole that sucks us in, and then it's so much more than just the sharing of pictures. It really is a difficult, foxhole that they'll start running down. So
kind of recently, actually on Netflix, there's this documentary that came out called The Social Dilemma, which kind of, in particular, talks about YouTube and the algorithms that the people that kind of started YouTube have made, and they're admitting now, years after the fact, that they made these algorithms on YouTube to have you like literally sucked into the rabbit hole of YouTube. It'll just keep suggesting videos. It'll keep kind of radicalizing you and keep like digging and making you want more and more and more. And so that's, again, the danger, because it's very easy to kind of get caught in these rabbit holes, because that's how the apps make money. YouTube makes money by you being on YouTube. So they're going to do anything in their power, even give you misinformation videos or videos that you didn't even want or suggest, or just kind of like the next like notch, that's the danger. Is it's very easy to kind of go down that slippery slope, which causes distraction. I've heard so many students kind of say, oh, I'm tired. Why are you tired? Oh, I was up till 4 a.m. watching YouTube videos. I'm like, well, okay.
That is not
all the time.
That's not strange for us to hear
That's
that
not an exaggeration.
Not at all.
regularly.
Not at all.
3, 4 in the morning. I mean, they went to bed early last night. I turned off my computer about 1:15. It makes us sound like fuddy-duddies, and it makes you as a parent probably think, oh, they're not talking about my kid, and these are some extreme cases.
Well, this is bringing the technology and the social media part together because, as you said, Netflix, YouTube, all of these can be found on the smartphone, and guess what you have in bed as an alarm? The smartphone. You lay it up on a pillow. I mean, like I've done this before, just lay in bed watching a YouTube video before I fall asleep, and an hour goes by and I'm like, man,
What
that's
did I
the
get
danger.
sucked into?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's a one-on-one, you and your device. But now these social media platforms also can contribute to some interpersonal issues. Lauren, talk about how difficult some of those interpersonal concerns can be.
Yeah, sometimes we see, like cyberbullying, right? It is a thing, and I know we don't use that word as often anymore. It almost seems like a dated word, but it happens, and it still happens. And so many of these platforms give a space for kids to have these group chats, especially Snapchat and Instagram. And these group chats, they're really bold on them, and so they are spaces where we can see kind of some of that bullying come out, or people talking about a certain kid, or passing around a picture to make fun of somebody. And then also, like, sometimes we really do see these kind of anonymous accounts pop up on Snapchat, or a burner account on Instagram is what it would be called, where a kid is running it anonymously, but they are running it for the purpose of exposing people at their school, or exposing secrets about people in their community. And this is really dangerous. It's really dangerous for the kids who are involved, and the kids who are obviously being exposed. It just creates a really dangerous environment where they obviously feel much more bold because it's on a screen, behind a screen.
And they feel that anonymity, and it's
Right.
really not, but they feel that way. They're emboldened by that. When we were growing up, if you wanted to harass me or say something to or about me, you had to call my house, get through Mike Costanza, get me on the phone, and tell me to my face what you wanted to say. Accurate or not, you had to go through those steps, right? And now, at the stroke of a button, seemingly with no name attached, dangerous things can be put out into the cyber world. And that includes pictures. We see all the time students taking pictures of other kids without their knowledge. And to me, that is one of the most dangerous forms of bullying that your student, your young person, could participate in or be subject to. And so one of the things that you may do as you go through your student's phone is, we have encouraged you from day one, and kids, yes, I'm selling you out, you need to go through their photo history. And in their photo reel, there's all these different headings, but you need to look at all those reels in their photos, and if there are pictures of people who look like they didn't know their picture was being taken, that's what I'm talking about. Ask your kids about it. It seems so simple and innocent, but it can be dangerous.
And just one So that's kind of one way to kind of do that, with the iCloud account.
While you're talking, we talk about the slippery slope and getting into some more illicit, pornographic type things. And it could be pictures, it could be videos, it could be pictures or videos of people they know, people they don't know. I love the example you use. I hate to say I love it, but it was a perfect example of, you start on a fitness, in the fitness realm, and where you get to can be difficult. Father, talk a little bit about how the brain works and why that is something parents need to be aware of.
Yeah, so when it comes to the brain and kind of the physiological things, our brain is kind of divided into 2 parts. So, every person, every animal kind of has the reward center, which is the majority of our brain, which is good. I mean, it's instinctual. It allows us to, survive. It allows us to pursue food.
My reward center works on the food and food part very well.
Yeah, so it's those things that we need, right? Like we need survival. We need to, we need to proliferate the human race, right? So like that's kind of a natural thing. So everyone has that. Man and woman, like mankind, humans have also an additional part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, which is kind of the brakes, which gives us, if we build it up, it gives us the ability to kind of take the back part, take the reward center, and kind of put it in perspective, pump the brakes if we're going too fast or too we're approaching like this reward or whatever.
The ability to reason.
Yes, exactly. So the prefrontal cortex is important. When we view pornography in particular and go deeper and deeper into that, or even with social media and go deeper and deeper into that, kind of cuts away from the prefrontal cortex doing its job and being able to pump the brakes, because pornography is an easy kind of image here, because usually, as we've said, it starts with kind of something innocuous, and then the more and more someone is exposed to pornography, the more and more they're numb to it, and the more they want deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and worse things.
Mm-hmm.
So the prefrontal cortex is kind of like lessened, and we're just open again to like not being able to control those kind of natural instincts, which just cause us so many problems in the long run.
It kind of like, it really can like lead to addictions, and we know that pornography can be an addiction. And so like checking phones and looking at this stuff really early is so important, so that it doesn't get to that point, because it can become an addiction. And when it becomes an addiction, then we're looking at, that affects their future relationships. I mean, it can very much become a thing, and we're seeing more and more people study the idea that like people become so invested in pornographic content that they don't even desire actual relationships with humans anymore. And that's scary. So we want to be checking and looking at this stuff so early on, because of just the heavy implications that it can have on our future.
Yeah, and I mean, we're making a very direct correlation with social media as the gateway to some of these deeper things. And just time and again, we see it, have seen it, and it's just important to be aware of it and monitor it from a kid's standpoint, a high schooler standpoint.
Absolutely.
If I'm a parent at home and I'm watching over the last 29 minutes, I am probably thinking, oh my goodness, this is undoable. I'm trying to drink from a fire hose. And you're right, you're drinking from a fire hose, but you are trying to drink, which is important. You're drinking from the right fire hose, which is important. And it literally takes just the acknowledgement that this is serious and worth trying to get right for you to put yourself into the right motion. This week, we've mentioned so much about the why and the what. And so next week on Partnering with Parents, episode 6, we will really kind of get into the practical, the how. We mentioned these different apps. We mentioned the devices. We mentioned, Mom, Dad, please don't let this happen. Well, now how do we do that? And, so we will get into the practical next week. And, we're going to leave you guys, the parents, tonight to wonder a little bit about maybe what your kids are exposed to. And here's the one thing I can tell you for a fact. Your kids are exposed to more than you think. We see it every day. Yeah. We see it in the classroom. Our kids do more behind our back than we want to admit in the classroom. And it really just starts with acknowledging that we all have a role and that we all have the opportunity to play a part in our young people being filled with the virtue that we seek. That's so important.
And I would say, this is kind of what we've been claiming. This is what these apps are designed to do. So just because, your kid has Snapchat or uses Snap Maps or does dances on TikTok, again, like, we're in the business here of promoting and loving children and forming them. So it's like we're not saying that this is they're completely off the rails. No, but we're saying that these apps can push them in a direction that we don't want them to be at. And if some are there, okay, like we can address it. It's not all lost. And it's just, again, good to be aware and start these conversations early. Or if you're little bit older, the kids a little bit further along, to just become more and more aware of ways that you can talk to your kids about it, that you can kind of monitor, and that's the whole point here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Father Patrick. Thank you to Miss Lauren Hoyer, and thank you to you guys for tuning in to Partnering with Parents. This is not easy. We won't get it right every time. It's important to remember that. But you're here, you're aware of what's going on, and when we as parents do our best, the good Lord will fill in the gaps when we mess up. All right, so thank you again. Episode 5 is over, and we have no questions this evening, so we get to go right to the credits. We'll see you next week for episode 6, where we jump into the practical boundaries that we as parents can set. All right, y'all have a great evening. Thanks so much.